opportunities, but we've got to have the capacity to do that. It was clear, even if there was a plan to keep the straits open, it was not going to be implemented because the assets were not positioned in a place to actually open the straits. If they were, it would have been, we would have seen those happening right now. We're not. So we're missing the point here. The center of gravity is going to be bringing down the government of Iran in a way that they will want to have a peace treaty so we can protect our country from having nuclear weapons pointed our way. But the center of gravity is going to be, in a lot of ways, is going to be focused on what happens on the straits. And Mr. Secretary, we've got to see action a whole lot sooner in the straits. The world community needs it. We're not going to bring this war to an end until we seize control of the straits in a way
which in part is why we have a blockade that has been impenetrable for the Iranians, because they don't have a conventional navy to contest it, which means we control the straits.
The time of Senator Peters has expired. Let me observe that I very much appreciate the senator from Michigan suggesting ways in which our effort in Iran could be more successful. I do appreciate that. And let me also observe, Senator Caine, that civilian control goes back well beyond Marshall. It goes back to George Washington, who was wise enough to resign his commission to the elected membership of the government at that time. Senator Sheehy, you are recognized.
I think it's important to note that the objective is not to get out of the war. The objective is to win the war, not to get out of it. And I think we've allowed the narrative to shift so off target here. President Trump did not start this war. We did not start this war. These radical, barbarian, savage clerics who have started killing Americans 47 years ago in a unilateral campaign of terror, murder, treason, kidnapping, torture, have been murdering our countrymen all over this world almost every single year, hijacking airplanes, hijacking cruise liners, taking our embassies, blowing up our embassies, blowing up our barracks, blowing up our ships, capturing our soldiers and murdering them in brutal ways. They started this war. And it would be a lot easier to beat them if we didn't have administrations shoveling hundreds of billions of dollars into their pockets while they're actively fighting our own people, while our own uniformed service members have been fighting this murderous regime. And we have presidents quite literally shipping pallets of cash to pay these terrorists off. It's been a disgrace. It's been an embarrassment to this country for far too long. But back to the point, General Caine, I have a specific question for you. I think in this day and age, we all know that basically every single operation that we partake in, whether it's stealth bombers, whether it's a blockade, our special operations forces are a fundamental shaping and priority component to all those. Would you agree?
Yes, Senator, I would.
And I think for the last about 15 years, the special operations community budget has been largely flat, even adjusted for inflation. And yet continuously we call on those warriors to deliver the impossible. And they pretty much do. We were reminded just a few weeks ago, even after the amazing Maduro raid, when we had to rescue one of our F-15 crewmen, yet again, our community came up and did something that probably most people thought wasn't possible. And they did an amazing job. But we cannot continue to call on a tiny fraction of our military to carry such a heavy load and to have such an op tempo without the appropriate resources. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we can not just increase the budget, but make sure we're shaping their budget in a way that ensures that those warriors are getting the direct support for training and sustainment, but also the platforms that they need, from mini submarines to unmanned aircraft to manned aircraft, and the platforms that are very unique for their mission are furnished and deployed rapidly. So I'd like to talk about the percentage increase of SOCOM's budget, how we affect that, and how fast we can do it.
Well, sir, I'll just highlight my gratitude and appreciation for the entirety of the SOCOM Joint Force at Echelon and the work that they do. You know, I'll leave the budget numbers and the increased percentages to my civilian leadership, but echo to your point, the exponential return on whatever investment they give. These are incredible entrepreneurial leaders at every echelon who do great things as the lights dim, as I say that. So hopefully they'll see that as a nod towards them. But I'll defer on the budget allocation numbers to the comptroller, sir.
First of all, I want to second completely your opening remarks, and that's certainly our view as well. On the SOCOM budget, I'm gonna say I think we need to increase what's in this budget, and I've heard from multiple people about that. In fact, that if there is a supplemental, I actually just wrote a note to Jay about it. I think SOCOM, given the op tempo, given their direct participation in so many of these historic aspects, SOCOM should be part of that supplemental as well. Makes complete sense. Who's been shouldering a huge part of the burden? Special Operations Command. So whether it's a supplemental or this budget, I fully agree, and I think we need to invest more.
Great. And I'd ask that particular care be given. The era of beards and guns and kicking indoors, as much fun as that was for all of us, it's coming to a close, and we're going to be going back to our roots as specialized commandos, whether it's undersea, Arctic, airborne operations. And as we all became kind of one joint soft force during GWAT, quite frankly, that was an easier problem to resource for, to budget for, and acquire for. It's going to be a lot harder now when our operators go back to their service corners and needs platform-specific technologies and training. Submersibles, aircraft take years to acquire, years to specify. It's not just buying more ARs and body armor and ammo and sending them downrange. So I think we have to think about the SOCOM budget a little differently than we have for the last 25 years, and make sure we're programming in a way that it's sustained and is protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Schmidt, for that insightful exchange. Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Secretary Hegseth, safe to say that our weapons like SM-3s, Tomahawks, Patriot missiles have capabilities that are unmatched. That's why they cost a lot, take a long time to produce. Your budget requests $31.8 billion to expand production capacity for critical missile stockpiles. Is that correct? 31.8?
I'm looking at 53 billion for munitions acceleration over 14 critical munitions, of which the ones you listed are a part.
Okay,
so I believe more
53.
than that. Yes, sir.
More than 20 billion more. So we've been working together to grow the industrial base because we're all worried about how our stockpiles would hold up in a conflict against China. Since the start of this war, you've made it a point to highlight the number of strikes the U.S. military is carrying out, citing that more than 13,000 targets had been struck as of April 8th. On March 2nd, you said, and this is a quote, "This was a massive, overwhelming attack across all domains of warfare, striking more than 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours. On March 10th, you said, "Yet again, our most intense day of strikes inside of Iran." On April 6th, you said, and this is another quote, "The largest volume of strikes since day one of this operation." Your department has released video after video of things blowing up. None of us doubt the strength of the U.S. military and their ability to do hard things. I understand that better than anybody. The questions we should be asking and answering are, what does this cost us and what does it achieve for the American people? Many of these strikes use our best weapons, and we're using a lot of them and a lot of interceptors. Open source reporting has estimated that the military has used an outrageous number of Patriots. I'm not even going to say the numbers, but a lot of Patriots, a lot of THAAD rounds, JASSM-ER, Tomahawks, very expensive, exquisite. We can't make these munitions overnight, and it's clear from your budget request that you know that. Can you tell us how many years specifically is it going to take to replace these systems?
Senator, thank you for the question. I would defer to the comptroller on the amount because I think it's a lot higher than 53. If you look at long-range fires, JASSMs, LRASMs, Tomahawks, we're looking at 238 billion.
Okay,
we're
a
looking
lot.
at 40 billion for hypersonic. So I actually think it's closer to 330 billion in munitions.
Okay, how many
ultimately-
years to replenish? That's the question.
I think that's exactly the right question too, Senator, because the time frame we were existing under was unacceptable.
Okay, well,
and what
tell
this
me-
budget does, months and years,
What-
fast.
years?
I mean, we're building new plants in real time.
So
that
just to
will
replace what we have
2x,
expended,
I said months.
and then you said years.
Both, it depends on the weapon system, but 2 to 3, 4x of what we have today. So
Okay.
yes, we're dealing with a reality under the previous administration of what they sent to Ukraine and what they allocated
Okay,
elsewhere.
I got it. So
And
we
we're
fired
Rapidly doing it
years
quickly.
worth of munitions. And it is clear that these are being expended to try to achieve some objectives. That was the plan. But, Mr. Secretary, this war is stuck. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. The Iranian regime is in place. The nuclear material still in their hands. Americans are being crushed by higher costs. And it's not clear to them at all what the goal of this war is. So I've got about a minute, and I want to go to another topic. I saw your hearing yesterday, and I'm going to give you one more chance to address a question here. It's my understanding that the definition of no quarter is that legitimate offers of surrender will be refused, or that detainees will be executed. Is that your understanding of the definition?
The only entity that would kill detainees or target civilians is the Iranians, and they're the ones being crushed.
So
It's the Iranian military and their military
The
capabilities.
question
So
is, do
I
you
disagree completely
understand?
with your articulation.
No, do you understand the definition that I just read you? Because that's the definition from your department's law of war manual. Is that your understanding? And I'm gonna just get to the point here.
We fight to win and we follow the law, Senator.
Okay, so your quote was, "We will keep pushing, keep advancing, no quarter, no mercy for our enemies." And yesterday, you did not clarify whether you stand by this statement. So I'm going to give you another opportunity to clarify if that is what you meant. Do you stand by that statement you made on March 13th?
We have untied the hands of our warfighters. We fight to win and we follow the law.
Okay, so you're not clarifying. So you stand by that statement. So you're the
Well-
Secretary of Defense. The things you say matter. And your response here, right now, makes it clear to the American people exactly why you are not right for this
It makes
job.
it clear to our enemies, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Sheehy has left the room, but it's been whispered to me that I just referred to him in the last exchange as Senator Schmidt. I don't know if he considered that a compliment or an insult, but I would do correct that for the record. Senator Slotkin, I think you were next.
Thank you. Gentlemen, you're here to ask for $1.5 trillion, 40% more than what we gave you last year, $1 trillion. And I agree with the chairman of this committee that the world has never been more dangerous and complicated. And regardless of whether we disagree on the reasons for getting into this war, I think we can all agree that we want our military to come out of it safely and successfully and as soon as feasible. The military has taken, the administration has taken military action in 10 different places in the world in 15 months, more than any president in US history. I think President Trump has really become a foreign policy president. And many of those operations, were on the news for a couple of days, but then the American public didn't feel them. And I think the difference with this war with Iran is that the American public is feeling it in their pocketbooks. Gas in Michigan is $4.99 today. The cost of fertilizer, of airline tickets, things that are real to people. Secretary Hegseth, the president said that you were most keen on this war. He said that you were the most gung-ho about it. I think despite us all wanting to come out of this successfully, it is hard to miss that we are at the stalemate, that we don't control the Strait of Hormuz because shipping is not getting through. And we can block what they're trying to get through, but nothing is moving and it's costing the American public. And I think that's a fundamentally different moment than the rest of the military action we've taken. Even in Middle East 101 class, we used to talk about and run war games on the Strait of Hormuz. It's a strategic geography that the Iranians have. And I think it's just concerning to me that we can try and tell the American people that it's going great and we're killing it, but until the Strait of Hormuz is open, I don't think we can credibly say that with any seriousness. I think the question I have for you, though, is future looking, and it's our 2026 elections. The president has been very clear. He said in the State of the Union that essentially if his side doesn't win, then the election was rigged. He said that before the 2020 election. He's asked for voter rolls for 29 different states. He just asked for Detroit's votes or ballots. And we know that in 2020, he wrote an executive order that he didn't sign that said to the US military, to the Secretary of Defense, you should go and seize ballots and voting machines. A few months ago, he said that he regretted that he didn't sign that executive order. So the US military has never been deployed. You incorrectly said yesterday that they were deployed during different elections. Governors deployed them under their authorities, but the federal government has never put the uniformed military at our polls during World War II, right after 9/11. We've never had to do that. So Secretary Hegseth, if the president, who regrets not signing that executive order to the then SecDef in 2020, asks you to seize ballots or voting machines in states during the 2026 election, will you stand up for the Constitution and say no, or will you salute and do his bidding?
Senator, I didn't get a chance to answer the front part of your question, which, there was a lot of deferred maintenance under the Biden administration that needed to be addressed because the world was in chaos when President Trump was elected.
Just address the election
because
issue, please.
Well, again,
It's the most important thing. It's what's happening.
It's yet another gotcha hypothetical, which is your specialty.
It's not. We had
And
an
ultimately,
executive order
under the
from
Biden
that your
administration in
predecessor had to
2024.
hold. It's not a hypothetical. I refuse to accept. You give that answer all the time. You and I have done this dance before. Get over it, okay? In 2020, he's the president, your boss, the guy you're performing for right now, told the journalists this year that he wished he signed that executive order to your predecessor. And your predecessor said publicly, thank God, we didn't actually go forward with it. What are you going to do? You're the guy here in the seat. It's not hypothetical. Tell the American people, will you deploy the uniformed military to our polls to collect voter rolls or machines?
Are you accusing me of performing? Because you're performing for cable news right now.
Dude,
But
just
Mr.
answer the
Secretary,
question.
we have.
It's a hypothetical. By the way, in 2024, under the Biden administration, 15 states did deploy.
Under
troops to
their
polling
governor's
stations.
authority, when their governors asked for
What did Joe
it,
Biden say
that's
about that?
fundamentally, I don't think anything, because he needed them for cybersecurity and for COVID. Trump did it too under Trump, but it was not the federal decision. It was those governors of the states under their authorities, okay? It's never been done in our history. Please stand up for the Constitution. Do not send uniformed military to our polls.
Do you have a response to that portion of the question, Mr. Secretary?
I've never been ordered to do anything illegal, and I won't. That
Thank you
goes
for-
without saying.
Thank you for the answer. Senator Duckworth, you're now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Despite his campaign promise of no new wars, President Trump has been obsessed with using the military any chance he gets, from deploying troops to American cities, to propping up Maduro's chosen #2 in Venezuela, to an endless war of boat strikes in the Caribbean Sea, and now in an illegal war with Iran, where hundreds of thousands of our troops are in harm's way every day with no exit strategy in sight. This administration hides bad policy behind the exceptional military operations and the valor of our uniformed personnel. I've long said Iran is a malign actor, but a responsible administration would have managed this short of conflict instead of starting a war of choice. There was no imminent threat to the United States or our troops. The military was not the most effective tool to get Iran to capitulate, as we're already seeing too clearly now. And using force has made Americans in the Middle East less safe while spiking costs for Americans here at home, all to the tune of 14 service members dead, hundreds wounded, billions of taxpayer dollars, and untold costs to our military readiness. This administration claims to be focused on the warfighter, but President Trump told us when he announced a war from his luxury resort that he expected service members to die. Now, sadly, it's clear how unserious Trump is about his role as the commander-in-chief. His war within Iran has already reminded us how important it is to prevent a war, how serious it is to ask the military to wage one under poor strategic direction, how destructive a wide-ranging war can be for Americans, for our service members, and how difficult it is to actually end one once you start it. The incompetence and casual disregard for our service members' professionalism and sacrifice is, in my opinion, a scandal. General Caine, can you tell us the status of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, the entity actively closing the strait?
Senator, apologies. I was listening to you. I was just trying to write it down.
No worries.
They're mostly destroyed. CENTCOM continues to watch them.
Not the Iranian Navy,
No,
the IRCG.
yes, ma'am. The smaller, I won't get into any classified materials, but the smaller, fast, and smaller boats, Boston whaler sized boats. There's still some out there. Yes, ma'am.
So this administration and the Secretary of Defense has been boasting about sinking the ships of the Iranian Navy, but let's call this what it is. It's misdirection. They want us to focus on the impressive number of large Iranian ships underwater to distract from the fact that they had no plans for the second Navy that Iran owns that has always been a hard problem to address by military force. The IRCG Navy, not the Iranian Navy, has been Iran's tip of the spear at the Straits of Hormuz, seizing vessels and threatening to target US assets. Iran has long invested in this second asymmetrical Navy specifically to develop capabilities that would be difficult for conventional US military forces to target. Iran's advantage was well known to anyone paying attention. I have no doubt that competent planners in the Pentagon raised their concerns about a quagmire in the strait to leadership. The question is why their leadership did not pay attention to this sound advice. Hubris is not strategy, and in war it costs lives. Even if the strait reopens, this administration has created a new, less safe world by initiating and then bungling this crisis and teaching Iran that it can charge $1 million a ship to transit the strait. It will take a long time for the global economy to bounce back to normal trade flows. And Iran has learned, again, that they can charge $1 million per ship, creating a new funding line for their malicious activity against Americans for years to come. And in the Indo-Pacific, I don't doubt that if the worst day comes, our military will step up to challenge and defend Americans and our interests with military force. But will they be asked to lay down their lives unnecessarily just because the White House was unready and incapable of preventing a crisis boiling over into a war in the Indo-Pacific? General Caine, do you agree that the military would benefit from significant intra-agency planning by the Department of Defense on actions short of war that can be taken if a crisis occurs?
Ma'am, I appreciate that question. You highlighting the importance of that. And we have really great relationships now on the joint staff with the interagency. I think our relationship in particular, I'll just pick CIA. I think it's the best it's ever been. We're really working hard to find the best of Title 10 capabilities plus the best of Title 50 to ensure that we deliver really entrepreneurial options for our national policymakers to do what you're talking about, Senator.
All right. But I am concerned because during the recent NDS hearing, I laid out the very real ways that a crisis in just one of the dozens of flashpoints in the Indo-Pacific could be devastating for our service members, Americans, and our American economy. But since then, this administration has only further diminished DoD's ability to prepare for these crises. In fact, as many as 1/3 of the assets in the Middle East are originally meant to be in the Indo-Pacific. This war of choice is draining our military resources. We need leaders who do everything they can to ensure warfighters only fight when they have to, not because of one man's whims and a lack of bravery among the yes men he surrounds himself with. I thank you for your service, General, and I continue to look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. Senator Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member Reed. Thank you, General, for your service. Before I begin my questions for Secretary Hegseth, I have one brief important question for General Caine. General, as you've acknowledged at your confirmation hearing, service members who served at locations which another U.S. government agency deems contaminated, like the Nevada Test and Training Range, should have the same presumption of radiation exposure as DOE employees who served alongside them. But we also must ensure that DoD provides the VA with the records proving that these individuals served there. So this is a problem that DoD has the power to solve. I know we've discussed this. So General Caine, will you commit to ensuring parity for DoD personnel who served in locations that the U.S. government has already deemed contaminated, identifying those who served in such locations, and providing documentation of that service to the VA so that they can receive the veterans benefits that they have earned?
You bet, ma'am. And I'm, since our last time together on this, we've continued to chip away at removing or figuring out how to get past that one particular blocking in that record so that that data flows normally. And I'm committed that trying to solve that for those leaders and teammates who are out there at that site.
Thank you. We'll look forward to continue to work with you on that. So Secretary Hegseth, I want to talk a little bit about AI because of course our service members deserve every advantage we can give them. So I just want you to help me understand this. In February, on the eve of Operation Epic Fury, you publicly designated Anthropic as a supply chain risk. However, this week it's been reported that the White House is now helping agencies get around this decision to access Anthropic's technology. So the administration cannot credibly make both claims simultaneously. So before I ask you about the inconsistency, I just want you to reconfirm what it is you plan to use this technology for. It's been publicly reported that the decision to label Anthropic a national security risk was influenced by your personal and very public contract dispute with Anthropic when the company said that its technology could not be used for fully autonomous weapons targeting or mass surveillance of Americans. So following up on your response to Senator Rounds earlier, can you confirm whether or not there will always be a human in the loop when AI is used for lethal targeting decisions?
Well, first of all, on Anthropic, they would not agree to our terms of service. That would be like Boeing giving us airplanes and telling us who we can shoot at.
This is not,
So
this
they
is
were-
not just about Anthropic, though. This
I
is
just want
about,
to be clear. And also,
And that's
Anthropic
fine.
is run by an ideological lunatic who
so
shouldn't have
but that's not my
sole
question. My question is AI writ
decision-making over
large.
what we do.
Writ large.
We follow the law,
Should
Senator.
AI, will you confirm, you said this to Senator Rounds earlier, so I'm just asking for you to
We
recommit.
follow the law, but we don't have to sign a different terms of agreement with
That's not, this
Anthropic.
is not the question. This is not about Anthropic. This is just an example. I want you to confirm that whether or not there will always be a human in the loop when AI is used in a kill chain for lethal targeting decisions. Will there always be a human in a loop or will AI make the decision? You said this to,
We follow the law and humans make decisions.
so you will confirm what you said to Senator Rounds, that a human will always be in the loop when AI is used.
Which is why that's
you
part
just
of our
said
terms
this.
of service anyway.
You know,
It's how we operate.
all I want to say is this. There is a DOD directive, 3000.09, which mandates that autonomous and semi-autonomous weapon systems be designed to allow commanders and operators to exercise appropriate levels of human judgment over use of force. That is in the DOD.
That's why we follow
directive.
the law, Senator.
So the answer is yes, Mr. Secretary.
The answer is we follow the law. Absolutely.
I think this is more important than following the law. I think that people want to know that AI isn't going to make lethal decisions, and it's critically
AI
important.
is not making lethal decisions.
That's what we want to hear. We're going to follow on that one. I have just a few seconds left, but you keep doubling down on this phrase, Mr. Secretary. You compare journalists, you compare us, you compare so many to Pharisees. Pharisees. It's a problematic and historically weaponized term that casts Jewish communities as hypocritical or morally corrupt. You doubled down again and said it. Words matter. Words matter. What you choose to say, how we choose to say it. How do you justify using this language as Secretary of Defense? Words matter. It's a historically hurtful term. Why do you continue to use it? And what actions are you taking to prevent rhetoric like this from permeating throughout the department that is going to target specific groups or individuals of people based on their religion?
Senator, I feel like it's a pretty accurate term for folks who don't see the plank in their own eye and always want to see what's wrong with an operation as opposed to the historic success of preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. So I stand by it.
You stand by calling people Pharisees. Sir, I cannot stand for that. That is wrong. It is not respectful to people. And I expect anyone who is in leadership in our country to be respectful and use respectful terms and not be an anti-Semite.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. The chair and the ranking member have no second round questions. I'm told by Senator Kelly that he would like to ask a second question.
Yeah, Mr. Secretary. So $1.5 trillion, 1.5 is a very round number. If you're putting together a budget, you'd come up with, these are the problems we're trying to solve. This is the capability we need. These are the systems we have to buy. And at the end of the day, it would spit out a number, and it's probably not 1.5 trillion. So to me, it feels like that number was just kind of pulled out of thin air. I took a look recently, and it seems that the defense budget of the rest of the world, I'm talking China, Russia, India, every Asian country, every European country, South America, everybody else is in the neighborhood, it looked like 1.7 to 1.8. So your request is approaching all defense spending from everybody else with the exception of us. That is a huge amount of money. When I got here, just 5 years ago, it was almost half of that. Through budget reconciliation, you've received a bunch of money to buy things, some of the weapon systems, to resupply what we need. I'm just trying to understand, where is all this money going to go? And if you figured out ahead of time, what do you want to spend this on? And by the way, there are systems the president wants. He saw last summer how effective Iron Dome and David Sling were. And because of that, the president decided we're going to build our own version. We're going to call it Golden Dome because the president likes the color gold. We've seen that, see it in the Oval Office. We're going to call it Golden Dome, and it might cost somewhere between $500 billion and $1 trillion. I've heard those estimates. By the way, on that problem, I know a little bit about intercepting stuff in space. It's really hard. And the physics on this favors the offense. There's some things in that program that I think is really important that we do and try to figure it out. But space-based interceptors to hit multiple targets. And by the way, it's important how you size the system. So I'm trying to understand, Mr. Secretary, what kind of detail did you work out like a detailed plan? And at the end of the day, it came out, oh, it just happens to come out to be $1.5 trillion.
Senator, the exact amount is actually $1.535 trillion, and it was a product of a highly rigorous process throughout our department, from COCOM commanders to the services, with our comptroller, with our deputy secretary, with the chairman and myself, to ensure the budget reflects the realities of the world we live in and the capabilities we're going to need. And that's why there's $65 billion for shipbuilding, $120 billion for the defense industrial base, $331 billion for munitions, $44 billion for quality of life, $71 billion on our nuclear DIB. You name it, we're investing in it. And the biggest reason for it is the underinvestment of the Biden administration. I mean, what they spent on defense, the continuing resolutions and others, undercut the buildup that President Trump had created. So yes, we're doing a lot of deferred maintenance here around the world and in our department. And this budget reflects it. And it's a commitment, a generational commitment to the security of the American people. And if the rest of the world won't spend on their defense, that's their fault. The American Department of War will invest properly to defend the American people, and that's what this budget
I've always been
stands for.
supportive of defense spending in my entire time here. And after 25 years in the Navy, I want to make sure our folks have what they need. I think you should go back and take a look and see if there are places where we are making investments that we actually don't need. There are some systems out there. I mean, we're constantly looking and trying to balance, do we want, F-47, which I've been supportive of, B-21, also supportive. And then we want to make these other investments in really inexpensive, low-cost munitions, because we suddenly realize that the expensive stuff, even through B-21, we can't really maybe not get close enough. But the whole idea behind B-21 and F-47 is we can penetrate further into the A2AD bubble. So there's some conflict there. So I'm just encouraging you to go back and see, if there are some systems where we can bring that number, the overall number down. Because as I look at what the department is trying to field, some of this stuff, in my judgment, and I know others might have another opinion, some of this stuff we either don't need or it's not going to work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kelly, your time has expired. Let me just say, you have a great deal of expertise in the area of space, and we do look forward to your contribution as we mark up further legislation. Senator Blumenthal, I understand you have a follow-up question.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your support for the Major Richard Starr Act, which I think is tremendously significant. I'm committed to getting it done as soon as possible, at least before Veterans Day, and I look forward to your help in accomplishing that goal, but I want to thank you for your support. I'm sure the veterans of America are grateful for the prospective victory there. I've talked to many of the combatant commanders about lessons learned from Ukraine. And I think that there is unanimity on the point that there is a lot to be learned, not only about what the Russians are doing, but what other adversaries could do as well. General Caine, Chairman Caine, would you agree that there are lessons to be learned from Ukraine?
You bet, Senator. And there's lessons learned from everywhere. And that's really the culture of our joint force right now, is to make sure that across the globe, anytime we're in contact with the enemy, we're going back and determining what we can learn from there. But a big one, if you'll allow me, a big one is mass and simultaneity, which is something the Secretary's taken a strong role in making sure that we're doing that through drone evaluations and things like that moving forward.
Following up on a question that I asked earlier, my last question, the President said yesterday that his view is, after his conversation with Vladimir Putin, that Ukraine has been, quote, militarily defeated. In your professional judgment, has Ukraine been militarily defeated?
Sir, I haven't seen the President's quote, but I'll go back to something I started with, and that's the importance of me maintaining trust with a variety of people. And a president will make a wide range of comments and considerations as the commander-in-chief.
You don't have to go too much farther. I understand the point that you're making.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it, Senator.
In my view, Ukraine has not only not been militarily defeated, but the point that I was trying to make in the last exchange with the Secretary, there's a false narrative based on my last visit to Ukraine, which was my 9th, my conversation not only with President Zelensky, but with our own military on the ground, as well as our intelligence community. In fact, Ukraine arguably is winning. There is this false narrative, Russia's winning. Putin wants that false narrative to be our official narrative. I'm not putting words in your mouth, and you don't have to respond. I understand your reasons for not responding, but the American people should know that the President of the United States is undermining our security, because Ukraine is holding the line against Vladimir Putin, who will keep going against Moldova, which I also visited on my last trip, against our NATO allies. And we still have an obligation under Article 5 to come to their defense, just as they did after 9/11, as King Charles so eloquently reminded us. And my view is, and this observation is hardly novel, that China is watching what we're doing in Ukraine. Would you agree?
So I'd agree that China's watching everywhere and carefully thinking about what their force posture and approach will be. And I think they're learning a variety of things, to include the tenacity and grit of the joint force around the things that we've been ordered to do over the last year.
But if they see weakness in our response to Russia and Ukraine, that will affect the deterrence of their possibly moving against one of our allies or partners in the Far East. Let me finally ask Mr. Hurst, your estimate of $25 billion, would you share with us what that estimate is based on?
Yeah, we can work to get you a product with the details if you'd like.
And finally, Mr. Secretary, is there going to be a report on the bombing of the school in the first day or so of the war? I know you were asked about it yesterday. I'm wondering whether you have a more detailed response that you can share with us.
As I've said, that's under investigation at 15-6. A general officer from outside the chain of command has been reviewing it, and it's still within the parameters of the investigation.
Will there be a preliminary report in the next few weeks, or do you have a time estimate?
I don't have a time estimate for you, but it will be, it's right now within the parameters of the length of time that normally these investigations take.
I'm asking because in your final response to Senator Gillibrand, you said that great care is taken to avoid civilian casualties, and it would be profoundly significant if that report were made available in a timely way to show, in fact, the commitment to avoiding civilian casualties and learning lessons from the mistake made there.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal. This concludes today's hearing. I'd like to thank our witnesses for their testimony. For the information of members, questions for the record would be due to the committee within 2 business days of the conclusion of the hearing. We are adjourned.